So,
Welcome, everyone. We are so thrilled to have a guest here today with us, Elise Morgan. Hello, Elise.
hello. Thank you
And
so much for having me.
yes, Michelle is going to do an intro for you just to make sure we get it all exactly right.
So excited to have you here. And yes, she has a wealth of knowledge and experience, all the kinds. So I don't want to miss a beat when I do this introduction here for her, because she is a former personal trainer, fitness model, and IFBB professional athlete turned life coach, author, speaker, and podcast host with a bold and sassy yet compassionate approach to personal empowerment. I love that. With a master's degree from the School of Hard Knocks and certifications in life coaching, NLP, and sacred ceremonies, Elise is dedicated to helping individuals break free from limiting beliefs and unlock their true potential. Through mindset coaching, personal, spiritual growth, and transformation, Elise leads you on a journey to awaken your soul, embrace your authentic self, and navigate life's challenges with confidence. Who doesn't want that, right?
I do.
I
Sign me
know.
up, right?
Yeah.
There
So
you go.
first, before we move on, I just want to ask a couple of things because some of our listeners might not know what IFBB stands for. So first, let's
Okay.
just brief explanation of that.
Okay. It stands for the International Federation of Bodybuilding.
Yeah.
So it's the mother of all,
Yeah.
what would you call that? Groups for
Mhm.
all of like all the like fitness stuff.
Yeah.
That's the major league one.
Very cool.
NLP is neuro linguistic programming, and what that really is in layman's term is we have pathways in our brain, and it helps us to how we think, and NLP helps us to change our neural pathways so that we have a more positive outlook, let's say. So it's like having a pattern of thinking
Hmm.
is a pathway.
Yeah.
If that's like a layman's term.
Sure. I
Nice.
love that. Positive
Well,
in, positive out.
We are
Right.
all about positive. So today
Yes.
we have Elise has agreed to speak with us on kind of an interesting topic. We really wanted to, well, I reached out to find someone who had had a DUI experience from their perspective, not being the person who was, I would say, a victim, I guess you could say, of
Right.
DUI. And also being a woman, this is something that we thought would be really important to bring to our audience because we've all had those experiences, where we have been in circumstances where we've had a drink or had two or whatever and had to make decisions about what we were doing. So we would love to hear your story and share it with others and what you learned from that, because we're hoping that that will be something we can take to our listeners that they will learn something from. So welcome and thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad. I'm glad to be here too, to give all the different perspectives, and then to go back to what I do, how to remain positive throughout this experience.
Yes.
And kudos to you guys, because it's the first time I'm telling my story in public.
I love it. Thank
So-
you.
Yeah.
So
I'm honored that you are, because it's a big deal. It's life experience and we all go through stuff. So it's good that you're ready, and we are really, really willing to hear. So
I have a
Yeah,
close
and
friend, to your point, keeping it close to the vest. I was just telling her yesterday that you were going to be on today and share your story. And she's been through the same thing. She's a mom and all of the stuff, and it's never anything that you expect, to happen. So
no, you don't expect it, especially in my, and I'll tell the story. Like, you guys let me know if you want to do it more as a question and answer, if you want me to just roll with it, because in hindsight, there's a lot of humor to my story. And of course, the subject matter is not humorous whatsoever.
right.
But what happened to me, in the end of the day, like, I make humor out of everything. So for me, first and foremost, I want to make sure the listeners know, and everyone that knows me knows, that I'm not an advocate that you should drink and drive. I think that's something you should not be doing. And in fact, I volunteered for Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. I mean, I was one of those people that were, for the most part, pretty, made sure that you didn't do that. Even
Yeah.
one drink. When you're older, one drink, whatever. But I was pretty big on not drinking and driving. So it's not like you're. I want the listeners to hear that. We hear about DWI. It's not somebody that has like 15 suspended licenses and they have
Right.
all these problems, which that could be, but it could be just your everyday mom who
Mhm.
made a mistake. And so I'll try and condense my story, because I tend to tell my stories really long and funny. But so bottom line, I was riding a jet ski that day, and friends of mine were playing volleyball somewhere on the beach, and I went to go watch them. And I usually did not drink, even socially, because I was competing. I just,
yeah.
you didn't, that was something I always liked to drink, like have a glass of wine with dinner and stuff like that. But you really refrained because that's not part of you're not drinking if you're competing.
Yeah.
And that particular day, I think I was starting a competition diet or whatever it was the next day. And the friends were like, come to the bar. It's our friend's birthday. And I was like, you're like, I knew I was going to be there for a long time. And I wound up getting like an ice cream drink, which for me was like the best thing ever because I was dieting all the time.
Yeah.
And you think like, oh, that won't be that strong. So whatever it was, I had that and maybe like, I think a shot, and that was it. And I've drank in my lifetime. And as I'm sitting there, can we curse on here? Because I'm from New York, I curse. I got fucked up. Like I was really fucked up. And I remember texting friends and saying like, I'm really messed up. And at that point, my friends and I made a plan to have a designated driver. So this is one of the beginning part of the funny story. That's not really funny. So here I am making arrangements for a designated driver to pick us up on the other side because you had to get your jet skis over there. And of course, when you're buzzed or pretty messed up, you're not making the best decisions. So one of the people that I was with, I was the passenger now on my jet ski to get to the other side. Because now I don't want to drive my jet ski. I'm not feeling that I should, right?
Right.
So we get driven to the other side. And when we got there, just automatic pilot, I got off the jet ski, went and got my car to pull into the boat ramp to get my jet ski. Because in my mind, I'm not driving. This is what I'm telling you, like the truth. In my mind, I'm like, I'm just getting my jet ski out of the water so I could park and get picked up by my designated driver.
Got it.
So that's the thought process. So when I got into the boat ramp, plus you're buzzed, I was having a problem like backing up to go get the jet ski. I don't know if anyone's listening that ever drove a boat trailer. It's the opposite of what you think. Just all these things. So how I learned to do it, I would pick up the hatchback of my truck. I have a Jeep. And that's how it was very easily done because now you can see everything. But because I guess I drank, I did not think to put my hatch up. So I'm like going back and forth very slow because it's a boat ramp to try and get my friggin', the jet ski out. Now, with that, there's a bar restaurant very close to where the boat ramp is. By the boat ramp, you're not supposed to walk around. It's only for the people with the boats and the jet skis, whatever. And as I'm like going back and forth with this thing, and I'm getting so pissed, like I couldn't do it the right way. I remember sitting there, just frustrated. And all of a sudden, I hear a commotion by the side of my car. And I'm like, what's going on? So I get out of my car. And you have to remember, even though I was messed up, I'm not falling on the floor. I'm not,
You're buzzed.
It's not like, you're buzzed. I get out and I see this lady laying on the side of there's a hill that comes down to where the boat ramp is. And she's laying there. So I figured she fell because there's a lot of people that are drunk walking around, whatever. So I'm like, oh my God, are you okay? And it was like 3 women, even older than me, and then started screaming at me. You fucking bitch. Just started screaming.
Oh, you're kidding.
And I was like, and I have no idea. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? Then the police are always there in that parking lot, right? Because it's a bar restaurant. The police come and I'm like, oh shit, I ran and get my license. I'm in a friggin', tank top and shorts, bathing suit. And I just know that now I'm a little nervous because I did drink, you know what I mean?
Right.
Next thing I know, I'm in the, what do they call it? I don't even remember what they call it. Where you have to do the test.
Oh, they have you do the field sobriety test?
The field sobriety, I couldn't think of the words. Next thing I know, I'm in the middle of doing that. And I remember the guy I was with was like, something like, don't blow. And I'm like, you're like, I've never been arrested.
Have you ever heard a guy say that? Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Right. Well, that's the thing. That's part of the fun of this whole thing. We're going to get to all the funny part. But that's one of them. Like, don't blow. And I had no idea what was going on. And my ex-husband was a police officer and did field sobriety test. But I remember him a little bit saying don't, whatever. Yeah. So I'm doing the field sobriety test, obviously failed it. And I remember being so humiliated because so many people are watching.
Oh,
and
wow.
And then you get the handcuffs put on you and you're so ashamed. I remember being like, oh my God. I remember them being so tight, please can you make these looser? And the police officer like, no, whatever. And then you go, I'll condense everything. Then you go to I've never been in that situation. You're handcuffed to a table. I'm freezing because you're wet. Really? I was just on a jet ski. So horrible. So I remember them saying, you get a phone call. So in my head, I was like, well, who has my car? Because knowing me, I probably would have called my son, who was he was probably only 16, but so responsible. But I wanted to know where the car was. So the man, the police officer put me on the phone with a girl that I didn't even know because he had her number. And she's like, I'm friends with Joe, one of the friends I was with that was arranging for the designated driver. She's like, I'm friends with him. We have your car. He has your car. We have it at his house. It's parked. I'm like, great. So I go to say, okay, I'm going to call my son. And the police officer's like, nope, that was your first phone call.
One phone call.
I'm like, but I didn't tell you to call that person. I just asked you where my car was. So that was like that. And I remember crying. I was still crying because he's like, they have to ask you 3 times if you'll blow in that breathalyzer. And I remember like being brainwashed. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
And then I'm asking him, I'm crying. I'm like, what should I do? And he's like, I can't tell you what to do. And I finally just blow. I just blow into the breathalyzer. Not the police officer. So, and it was just like, he was just so mean to me. I was just like, I don't know. But I wound up doing that. So then I wound up doing that. I think I got driven to a cell, and you're there overnight, and it was just,
oh my gosh,
you're not in that situation. You're like you said, you're like just mom, I'm not a prude, but I also was never arrested before. And then the other cells, you hear the women, they're all talking to each other. That's like the weekend. That's how they spend their weekends every weekend. You could tell like, oh, I never got arrested in this precinct before. Like, it was just like, who am I with? You know what I mean?
Did you have your own space?
Yes, at that point I did. And then you wake up and they, I don't know what's going on. They wake up, they take you in a chain gang. And I'll never forget.
No way.
There was like a plexiglass window. And I remember seeing my reflection in this window. And I'm like, I just can't believe this.
Are you wearing, did they put you at least in like an orange jumpsuit or something? Are you still wearing your bikini?
Thank God I usually wear bikinis. And thank God that day, typical me, I felt fat, which I guarantee you I was not. I would kill to look like that now. I wore a tank top and shorts. So thankfully, because then I would have been in a bikini. But I just remember being humiliated. But just to let the listeners know, because of my background, at that point, I've been really into personal development, personal growth. I was just very calm, and I just knew that everything, no matter what, everything's going to be okay. This is just the situation I'm in. And speaking about my outfit, the back of my shorts said Heartbreaker on them. So that was fun. That was fun going to jail with Heartbreaker on my ass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So to condense it, you're, I guess, in a holding cell to be taken before a judge. And I guess because what I was wearing, I was put separate so that you're in this big cell, but I was in like a separate one again, thankfully. And then I guess an advocate for the court comes to talk to everyone, and everyone's getting like this young, hip, lawyer or whoever they are. And I get this guy, I swear to God, he was probably 85 years old. And he's asking me, to people to, I guess, come and get you, whatever it was. And I gave him, and you have to remember, do you know anyone's phone number? It's very hard to
yeah.
So I knew, and then the people that the phone number, they're the ones that are going to come bail you out of jail. I don't know, right? You have to know the phone numbers to call. Yeah. So I had these 3 people. I give them the number, and I actually, one of the phone numbers, I said, call this one last, was my ex-husband. And so then it gets better. So then everyone's getting their lawyer coming back, and this is what's going to go on. They're getting their name called, and they're getting taken out, leaving, I guess, whatever. And here I am waiting and waiting and waiting. And here comes my old man. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, well, I didn't get anyone. I left messages. I'm like, well, what does that mean? You left messages. I'm sitting here waiting to get out. Next thing I know, I get called. And I'm like, oh, thank God somebody,
somebody's bailing me out.
Somebody's bailing me out, or whatever you have to do, pay money. I think you could have bailed yourself out, but you had to pay cash. And all I had was a debit card, which still to this day, I should use that as a reminder. Always have cash,
to self,
right?
In case
never
you need
have
it.
Cash. Never have cash. So then they take me, and all of a sudden I'm being taken out to the prison bus.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, holy shit. And I remember them putting me on this prison bus with the other prisoners in a separate thing there too, probably because what I was wearing, whatever. And I get taken out to the county jail. And now I'm in jail, and I'm getting processed. And I kept asking, what's going on? I don't understand.
So you were prison bus?
I'm on the prison bus, and we're driving to jail. And I'm like, I really didn't have anything. I have no idea what's going on. But like I said, calm, always saying like, this is, no matter what, I'm going to be okay. And like, just very positive, if you will. You get to the jail, and I've never been there. I mean, you don't want to go there. You do not want to go. And this is just jail. Jail is, I forgot there's jail and prison.
Like county jail.
Like jail is jail if you have to go to jail. I think at least in New York, if it's under a year, you go to this place, and it's over a year, you go to a prison. So you go there, you get processed. I'm talking animals in there. It's animals.
So is this it's all women in here? Is this a women's? So this is a co-ed,
not yet.
Just like the county
this
jail.
Is a co-ed, like, co-ed holding middle,
Got it. Okay.
the middle lobby, if you will.
Holy
and there's
shit.
And there's like all these guys in one cell, and I'm wearing heartbreaker shorts, mind you.
Yeah.
So like,
Geez.
it is just, I didn't know where to put myself. And they were trying to like put me by like a steel beam or whatever. Be getting processed, and I don't know what's going on. Then they take me to a place where it is all women. And the two sheriffs that were there, the women, they were very heavy set and whatever. And they
didn't like you.
They didn't like me.
They didn't like you. Nope.
They showed it. And everybody said I always look younger than I am. And back then I probably did, because this is almost like 10 years ago. They were like pointing at my age and pointing. And then they didn't like me. So I never was so happy to put on a prison suit, because I was so cold.
Well, your clothes have been wet and everything.
I could not wait. I didn't care. I put that stuff on. I was so happy. And then they're like, you can make a phone call. So I think I called my ex-husband.
At that point, you're just like, I don't care. I'm calling the ex.
Yeah. Or maybe they told me that he got the phone call previously. So I was so confused. And I remember calling him. And the joke is, he's like, oh, I never got a call from a prisoner before. Because if a prisoner makes a call, the recording is prisoner number 4560 is calling. So I'm like, can you help me? Whatever he said. And I remember crying. And I think he said he asked my brother. He couldn't do it. He was upstate New York. He just couldn't do it. So he was trying to arrange somebody to come and get me. And what the clincher was that I was really mad at him for is that the night before he found out what happened, and that I had been taken to jail. And I was like, why didn't you do anything? Like,
right.
You could have been there in the morning, whatever. And he's like, I didn't think you wanted me to know. Well, all right, maybe that's true. I have no idea. I'm not going to bash him.
So did your family
now.
know where you were overnight?
Nobody. So let's go back to that. I'm glad you had that question, because my son, who also has a voting license, and also he was 16 at the time, or whatever he was, to tell people where you are. It's part of the voting thing. You say, I'm going on, and I always stupidly went by myself, usually, which is not really just, but yeah, so my son is looking all over for me. And that's how my ex-husband found out, because they go to the boat ramp. Mom's not home. What's going on? My son thought I'm dead. Yeah. And then I guess my ex-husband was like, he was a police officer himself. So he's like inquiring, I guess, hospitals. And then I found out I got locked up. And sure, a piece of him like that, but I'm not sure. But yeah, so it's like, at that point, I don't know anything. I don't know what anybody knows. I don't know what anyone doesn't know. I'm literally in jail. And I remember, getting that outfit on. I couldn't, I was trying to I always make the, positive. I'm like, well, now I got something warm to put on. It's
right.
Like, and I remember, you're with, no offense to these people, but you're with the dreck of society. You know what I mean? I didn't see too many people that did look like they were there a lot of the time of their life. And you're just like, I knew I was going to get out of it, but I was getting processed. Like, then I was shown where I was going to sleep. And I couldn't understand, because I know the law. I know that, you could get out. It's not like you go to jail for this. You get out on bail and you have to show up in court in a couple of months, whatever it may be. And I'm like going up to each officer at each thing I had to go to. First, you had to go to the infirmary, and then you had to go to get this. And then they're like, you have to get a tetanus shot. I'm like, what is going on? It's just, and I'm like, excuse me, sir, I don't think I'm supposed to be here. And he's like, and he did say there was something in next to my name in the system that they weren't sure what was going on, but obviously they have to keep processing. She's just still getting processed. It was horrible, because you're not really sure what's going on. And then, let's fast forward, they probably got a call that I'm getting picked up, whatever it may be. I don't know who's coming to get me. I don't know anything. And when I was going to get released, they had me with this other girl I feel bad talking bad about people, but like all tatted up, and she's pregnant. And I'm like, saying to the guy, like, who's picking me up? And he's like, I don't know. Like, they're not very nice. Yeah. And I don't blame them. They're around, they're just in, their work is horrible. They're not here to like make you feel better. Like, oh, let me check to see who's picking you up. They don't know. You know what I mean? So then she's like, you can come with me. And I'm like,
you're like, hail to the no.
I just remember, getting your things. And the only things I had was my debit card and my ID, because I left everything in my car.
Right.
And my phone. And my phone, I don't know why I had my phone, because it was wet. My phone was like wet. So they gave me the phone, and I thought it was just not charged. And I had asked them, like, can I charge my phone for like a minute so I can call somebody? They're like, nope. You're not even allowed to stay in that like lobby area. You have to leave.
Like leave the premises.
So I'm leaving the premises. I was back in my wet clothes. It was just horrible. And I remember walking out and seeing my ex-husband, his best friend, who I used to also be friends with. And I remember seeing him, like, I could have been my ex-husband. I probably would have been like on him, hysterical, crying, holding on to him. And he was just like, oh, you smell like a skell, because he was a police officer. He's like, oh, I'm like, I was in jail. So it was so humiliating, because you didn't, you like, oh yeah, I take full responsibility that you shouldn't drink at all. But in my lifetime, I've had one or two, waited hours, drank the water, didn't feel buzzed at all before you got into a vehicle. I'm saying as an adult. As a kid, you made stupid mistakes.
Sure.
So like, it was just like, I didn't know what the hell was going on. I didn't know, as I was sitting in the cell, I was like, did anyone spike my drink? You start to think all these things, because I literally was like, I was pretty messed up for the amount of alcohol.
You were preparing for your competition, so you probably didn't have anything, of huge substance in your system even.
Yeah, it was that too. But it's just for the listeners to hear, it's like, it's a mistake of, not everyone's a bad person because they had a DWI. Now, here's the clip. Here's what happened as well. And I want to bring this to everyone's attention, because it could have been much worse. So that woman that fell,
right. I was wondering about her.
She claimed that I literally ran her over with my car, basically on purpose. Like, ran her over in front of my car, which physics-wise, it's impossible, because she was behind my car. You know what I mean? So it's like, just in that sense. And
she's frozen again. She's back.
You're back.
Okay, she's back. So she's claiming this. I didn't know about any of this, until I got to the first precinct. And he's like, she's saying you did this. I'm like, I would never do that. I did not run anyone over with my car. I would know. Like I said, it wasn't like I was completely out of it. I would know if I hit it. I was crying. I was like, I would know.
Wasn't she up on the hill? Was she up on the hill? You said she'd fallen on a hill.
Well, there's a hill there, and right where she landed. So like, that's what I thought happened, right?
Oh, okay.
And it's right like where we're going back and forth. So I was like, I did not hit a human being. If I hit, I would be devastated.
Well, and everybody else was standing around there. They would have noticed too. Yeah.
Excuse me, I have a little bit of a cold.
Yeah.
So I was crying. He's like, that's what she said you did. And so then now it becomes this, that now you injured somebody. So then I find out after that, because there was an injury, that's why you have to get on bail. You have to have somebody bail you out, as opposed to just being released. So
you didn't even know you'd been charged with hitting somebody at that point? Or
no, I didn't know I was being, maybe they said it at court, but I do remember them saying that you can get bailed out. And I had two people come, and they were told that I wasn't there. So that's the irony of all this. It was just all things led to me going out to that jail. And I'm going to continue the story, because it brought me to here. Because this whole, this is what people have to do too when you're going through stuff. It's always for you. There's always a lesson. There's always something. And even if you're in the shittiest, and you can't bring yourself to look at it that way, you can try, because something good is going to come of it, or at least you learn something or whatever.
Absolutely.
So to continue, so now that it was that, when I finally got home, I saw my son. I'm like, it was just horrible. You know what I mean? And now you have this whole thing to deal with. I just got charged with DWI, and it's and for me, everyone that knew me, including my son, they're like, you?
Yeah, no.
You're like an advocate. So it's just funny in that respect. So because of this, she claimed that. And then once I got like the police report, I remember going down to the precinct and saying, this isn't true. Did you ask any other witnesses? They're like, no. I'm like, why didn't you ask me? You didn't even ask me, because I would have said, I didn't do it. Two, if she got hit by anything by me, it might have been the trailer as I was going back and forth. Mostly her fault, because she shouldn't be there. That's the only thing I can think of. But I don't know. You know what I mean? And I felt horrible that if I had anything to do, she hurt her foot. So, and I'm not putting down that I might have hurt somebody, but it was her foot. It wasn't anything catastrophic. And the reason why I wanted to say this is because what if it wasn't? Like, what if I killed somebody? You know what I mean? And you're not thinking of that, when you say to yourself, let me get in my car. And I know that I was being responsible, but still, I still got in my car. And you have to, like, I can't even imagine, because I know how badly I felt, that I knew I didn't run her over. I knew I didn't
Right.
physically run her over, but I knew that even if my trailer clipped her, if that's the case, I feel horrible. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But that also could happen when you're stone sober, and she wasn't. And it wound up getting where my car insurance paid her doctor's bill, and I think gave her a settlement. And I think it was proven that she may have fallen down that hill and was intoxicated and all that. But still, the charges are on me, right?
Right.
So you feel horrible. And then the aftermath of all this, not only is it, I remember getting text messages from people that don't even know me that well. Are you all right? And I'm like, I didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
I don't know about out by you, but it's called patch. So each individual town has their own patch of all like what's going on with the police. It gets put on the internet. So there's my friggin', picture with what,
it's like a like a blotter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. It's like, you don't want everyone to know. So
is this a small town, kind of a small town where you were? No, it was a larger town.
Yeah. It's just,
wow.
So, but the aftermath of it is dealing with, being sued by this woman, and then you have to go to court, and then it costs a lot of money to get a lawyer and a lot of money. And I'm so grateful that I had it. I had a cushion, which I don't really have that much anymore, but I had the money to deal with it, but still it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I had to get a breathalyzer in my car. So to start the car, you have to blow in it.
Right.
And as you're driving, you have to do it. So whoever's in your car it was just so humiliating. My kids, driving them to sports, you have your kid. It was just very humiliating.
Did you have that in your car for like a year?
About a year. And then I got to tell this part of the story because it's great. So it's about, I don't know when it was, how many months later, but it was quite a ways, like maybe 9 months in, almost done. And I went on a date through a dating app. I was going on a date, and I wasn't going to go because he said he was like 5'7" or 5'8", and I'm like 5'8", and I can't be with someone like short. And because of my competing and my lifestyle and just how I am, I never really went out much. It's like if people are going out eating and drinking,
right.
And divorce, I don't have the same friends, and just I don't know. So my friends are like, go on a dating site, go on a dating site, at least go meet people. So that's what I was doing, not on the regular, but so go on this date. Guy was super, super nice. We knew a lot of the same people. Nothing there, and I remember walking up going, please be taller than me. Please be taller than me. We go on this date, and we knew some of the same people. Very nice time, very good to talk to us like all day. And I can't remember if that's when he told me, but I think he had one as well in his life and had the breath light and whatever. And then he's like, you want to just go out for dinner by my house? And it's called Long Beach. It's Long Island. And it's like a really cool place, like on the beach. And in my head, I'm going, I don't really want to go because I'm not interested. But then I'm also going, what are you going to do? You're going to go sit home again by yourself.
Yeah, right.
So I was like, okay. So drive there. And part of you is also going like, I don't want to lead this guy on either. You're like, it's like it was a weird thing. But I think he got the gist because I was making fun of him a little bit on the date. So about his height.
He probably liked that if he's asking you to go meet him.
Well, no, go with him. So we drive down there. I park like in front of his home, and then we go out for dinner. And at dinner, he had like 1 or 2 drinks. And he's like, you want to have one? And in my head, I'm like, you know what? It's the same thing. I wasn't competing.
Yep.
I had literally 1 drink. Didn't even feel buzzed. Just had the drink. And this is the most messed up part. So then we go back to his house, and in my mind, I said to him, if I have 1 drink, I'm not going to drive. See, he lived in like a home with like other roommates. He's like, you can sleep on the couch, or I think there's a spare bedroom, whatever he said. So I was like, all right. I was like in that F it mode. I'm so sick of being home by myself. My kids were always with their dad. I was like, I'm just going to do this.
Yeah.
Dumb move. So when we get there, he goes, oh, can you just move your car up like a couple of feet?
Oh, shit.
No.
Can you please move your car up a few feet so my roommate can get his car in the driveway? I'm like, yeah. Like you're thinking, no problem. Like, I don't care. Get in, blow. As soon as I blow, I'm like,
oh, fuck.
No.
Fuck. And I'm like, I don't believe this. And when you have that, you have to report to a, I don't know what, not an officer. I forgot everything. You have to report like every month. And,
sure.
Probation
officer.
Not probation, but similar.
Something like that.
Something like that. And you have to pee. And she loved me because you know the difference between somebody, that's not really doing this on the regular.
Right.
So I just go and pee, whatever. She loved me. So I literally emailed her the second it happened told her exactly what happened. I told her the truth. I said, because you're not allowed to drink at all. It's so weird that you get a DWI, you're not even allowed to drink, period. Zero. Like, you're not even allowed to have alcohol in the system, which is weird, because why can't you drink if you're not driving? But whatever, you're not allowed to have any. So I email her immediately, like, I went on a date. She knew my whole story, it's like, and I just was like, I don't believe this. So of course, she's like, I'll call the judge. I'm going to tell her that you're really a pillar of, doing the right thing and everything. And, so they gave me a second chance. I had to go to court, pay more money for this frigging incident that it's like, so, you don't think of this, it's like a movie, right?
Right.
So I go to court, and now I have to do classes and go to like alcohol, like whatever you call it. Oh, not AA, but like through the town, you have to go sit with people that are serious drug and alcohol problems.
Yeah.
I didn't have to start it yet. And I went on another date, let's say a week later, right? So I go on this date, and we're sitting and talking, and I'm very open. Now I'm telling this guy the story. And in his head, he goes, holy shit, this is the girl. This is the girl. This is how small world it is. He had gone on a date the week prior with a girl that was friends with the guy I was with the week prior. Geez. So he must have told her the story. Now she's telling him the story, and they're both going like, who does that? Who blows in a breathalyzer when they know they're drinking? So here I'm going, and in this guy who I happen to have really liked, and he liked me, was like, that's the girl, that's the girl. Fast forward, that's my husband. I married him for 3 years. We're together 6 years, but like, so that's my husband now. But it was just, and at the date, he's going in his head, I want to tell her so bad that I know, like, it was just the funniest thing, but it wasn't funny.
Right.
Okay, now fast forward, it's all meant to be, because my husband lived here, I lived here, and the place where I had to go every, once or twice a week was very close to our homes. It wasn't inconvenient, and I actually wound up liking it, because when I was younger, I had binge eating disorder. So like food to me was like a drug. And when these women were talking about drug and alcohol, I related to them in that respect, but not with drugs. I don't have a drug or alcohol problem. But then I started taking over the class. I started doing, self-help meditations, and I started teaching them positivity, and started doing all these things that I said to myself, this is what I want to do with my life.
I love that.
The long, windy story of, I don't know if I probably still would have done what I'm doing. I think that's just what I would have done. But that really was like, wow, I want to do this. And I probably wouldn't have known that until I was in that situation.
Well, it subconsciously led you to where you're at right now. Really, when you think about it, you didn't do it purposely. I mean, it just kind of drove you in that direction. And you met this amazing man who knew your story and accepted you the way the story was, regardless, which is pretty cool. Yeah, that doesn't ever happen on dating apps. I'm just saying. No,
there's a lot of people. You know what it is? It's like, in fact, I think I'm going to do a podcast with my husband. In fact, I said I want him to be my first guest, because I don't do guests at the moment, just starting to. For years, probably still never told anybody we met on a dating app because of that, because it's so like, that's sleazy, but it's like, I didn't want my kids to know I was on a dating app, and it's just, but
there's opinions out there.
Yeah.
10 years ago, I totally could see what you're talking about, but I mean, like nowadays, it's no big deal.
It was pretty prevalent in our age group, like older people doing the dating apps, because like, where are you going? Where are you going to meet people? So, but I still didn't want to tell anybody. So now everyone knows on your podcast, and they'll soon know. But I know I went all over the place, but the moral of the story is, number one, some people that get DWIs certainly don't plan on it, obviously.
Right.
I mean, when I met some of these women in the classes, they were on their third, they were jailed. I don't understand that. Like, for me, I wouldn't even take a sip ever again if I was driving. I just will not. I just won't, because I don't even want to get into an accident by accident.
Right.
And then they're like, did you drink? And you had even one drink. I don't want to even be anywhere near it. So like, it also turned me on to Uber. I didn't even know about Uber back then.
Oh.
So I had an Uber everywhere. I rode my bicycle, because here's another thing that listeners might not know, at least in New York. If I did not blow in the breathalyzer, it's an automatic license suspension for, I think, 6 months. By blowing and being under, I was high enough to be charged, but low enough to not be a felony, whatever.
Right.
The fact that I blew was only 30 days without a license. And then I had my license back.
Yeah. Here in Washington, it's a year. is my
Wow.
understanding, if you don't blow in the breathalyzer. You can
Yeah.
do the field sobriety, but I mean, it's a whole thing. My ex-husband was a cop too. So
Oh
I
yeah, see
understand the process.
car-
Yeah.
yeah,
But if you wait, well, I'm not going to tell you how to get around it, but it
right.
is basically the field sobriety test that they have you do that is the most humiliating part is exactly what you're talking about, where they were having
Yeah.
you touch your nose, walk the line. And that is something you're required to do, on site for them to determine, if you're under the influence or not. But
And I don't think you even
regardless,
have to do that. I don't even think you have to do that. But then you're
you say,
getting,
take me in. Just take
right.
me in,
It just, the thing is, excuse me, in my personal opinion, I think society has gotten, like, when something happens bad, they try and rectify it almost too much to a fault the other way.
Right.
And I'm not even going to get on other subjects, but with drinking, I think it should be a case by case basis on that first offense, especially it's, lower, but it's jail time, or whatever it may be. Like you said, a year without a license. And I think even a friend of mine that I met in that class, even though she had 3 and she hasn't had one since, she's not allowed to drive, period. So how is she supposed to have a job? And how is she supposed to be part of the society?
Like forever?
Forever.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
that I disagree with.
I do too.
Number one, you want to make money, have breathalyzers in their car.
Yeah.
If anything, or maybe only drive during work hours or whatever you have to do since she's had 3. I mean, I understand that they're concerned, but I just think that that's a freedom that should not be taken away when someone wants to try and become a better person, let's say.
Right.
So, and
That
I know
makes complete sense.
I just made the best of it. At the time, I lived pretty close to stores and I would ride my bike and, people were saying, just drive. They won't know. I'm like, hell, and I'm a risk taker. I'm not like Debbie Do-Gooder by any chance. I'm not a prude, but I certainly was like, I'm not risking for 30 days. I'll just chill out. I took an Uber to the gym and I was like, Uber's great. Because Uber, I don't know how long Uber's been around, but I don't really remember it being something that I thought about back then. Now, of course, it's so prevalent.
It's like 2007, 2008. Yeah, right around there.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
that's when I remember being introduced to it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow, this is a trip. I remember thinking, wow, this is kind of like a cool thing, but I'd never done it before either.
Yeah. And I remember, like, after getting it, I remember researching that the woman who created Mothers Against Drunk Drivers later on drank at a baby shower and got arrested on a DWI.
Wow.
So it just goes to show you that, sometimes you might not make the right decision, but I think from seeing my own children, I think at this generation, like they don't seem to, they seem to all Uber, especially a lot of times the parents are paying for their Uber. Like they just seem to be a little bit more like absolutely not. And I remember growing up when we were younger, you didn't even get in that much trouble. If you just got caught, God forbid, if you killed somebody, accident,
they would pour everything out and say,
or just take your keys, right? Walk
Yeah.
home, take your keys, whatever. But it's
changed.
It's changed, and it shouldn't be allowed. It shouldn't be okay. But I don't think they have to do something to where the people that are repeatedly doing it, they're suspended licenses. They don't even have a license. So like they should have, I don't know how they can do it, but
well, they're still driving. I mean, when you're talking about people with such severe problems, it's like, a license, the potential for getting arrested, that doesn't really seem to faze them because they're so heavily into their addiction,
Yeah. And if it's truly addiction and they're not getting help, then what do? Do you put them somewhere? It's like, it's a tough call because if it's your first offense, how badly, I just think it should be, like I said, my jail thing was I didn't even say that part. My name was put into the system wrong. So I got sent out to that jail and that whole entire thing by accident. Like I wasn't supposed to be sent there. But like I said, I'm glad I was because number one, I make a joke, bucket list. Jail.
Yeah. Check.
Check.
You can check that one off. So how was your family, Elise? How did they, like your son and your family, were they supportive or how did they respond to all of this?
my younger son, who's more mature than I am even to this day, I mean, they were all just like, couldn't believe that you did it. And they just, they knew it was a mistake and they just kind of like sometimes made fun of me out of blowing that thing. I was so like on point that one time we went out for dinner, just me and my younger son. And I had a mint and some mints will blow off. And I made him, he was able to drive. I was like, no, I can't do it. You do it. I was just, but I think they were supportive, and just like my older son was still at college, so when he was home and I would just blow in it, his friends would be in the car. It was just, I was like a master at it. Like some people have to pull over and then blow. Like you're allowed to do it while you're driving, and I would just do it. You have to hum. I mean, my husband at the time, he's now retired, was a police officer. So I'd go to visit him at work and he'd be talking, and then I'd have to, it's like, it was just a very humiliating time and expensive. So people don't realize how expensive it could be. It was a minimum 10 grand, definitely a little bit more than 10 grand.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's, not even the worst case. I wasn't
So pay $50 for the Uber people, right?
Yep. Definitely. It's not even, because even that one drink, if you just had it and it's like, and you get into an accident, even if someone hits you, just like, especially let's talk about weed now, because weed is pretty, pretty legal everywhere. It's like, even if you didn't do anything wrong and you're under the influence, you're screwed.
Yep.
So why take that chance? But, when you're younger, you always think it's not going to happen to you, but why not be proactive? I mean, it's so easy.
Mm-hmm.
Or get a ride from a friend or a family. Like, don't even, but a lot of people don't plan on getting plastered. They like maybe have one, I'll just have one more, and, or just leave your car wherever it is.
Right.
And get it the next day.
It seems like such no-brainer advice, right? I was going to ask, if you could give advice to the younger version of yourself or younger people, that are in similar situations, what would it be? And it's a lot of the stuff we're talking about now.
Yeah.
Which seems like, but I'm guilty. I'll put it out there.
Yeah.
I was just,
every adult is,
with friends yesterday and had a couple drinks, and I was there all evening, so it wasn't right away. I get what you were saying too. Drink the water, let time go by before we do it. But I need to think about some of this advice for myself,
Yeah. And I remember, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, just we I'm not going to say we all do it, because you don't, but a lot of us just do that, and I love that you're able to look back now and see the journey that it took you on. Glass half full as you're going. Not a lot of people are able to do that. And then the outcome of this wonderful, career path that you've taken on, to where you can help other women, other people go through and, put these things into practice in their own lives. I think it's tremendous.
Yeah. I've always been that half full person.
Yeah.
And, how else can you be? Right. I think my biggest concern, believe it or not, of the whole ordeal was when I got into that little van that takes you to the jail. I went to court because I get car sick and there was no windows. And I'm like, please just don't let me get car sick, please. Like, that was my biggest, I was just like, I could take anything else.
Right.
Throw jail at me, throw gangsters at me. Just please don't let me be nauseous.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't think about it. And there's definitely times in my life where you're going out for dinner and you might even be a little, what they say, buzz driving.
Yeah.
You're still you're not really messed up.
Right.
And I think when you know that you can drive, and we've all done it, and I don't care,
it's scary.
When it happened to me, I remember thinking, like, my husband's probably going to use this as great. Like, look what mom did, or like, and my brother, and like all these people, I felt like they were judging me.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to them, I go, this could have been you probably this weekend. I know when my kids were little and you're doing the drive and pick it up, like when they would go to parties, whatever. I always did the early, because I used to get up so early for the gym. So I do the drop off, and these other parents would pick up my kid, and I started to complain. Like, they were out to dinner drinking probably, and now they're picking up my kid. Like, so I was always kind of against it, and it happened to me too. So, but I think our bodies build up a tolerance to alcohol, where you might be able to have 2 glasses of wine and not really feel it, especially if you're eating. But I won't even do that, because I just look at it like, why? Like, I just, it's not that I'm in the position with the experience that it's not worth it to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think I'm sorry, go ahead,
I was
Michelle.
just to say, this is really inspirational for me, because it's not like, I have a drink in hand on this podcast plenty of times, and I'm not going anywhere after, but I'm just sitting here thinking, I need to take the things that you're sharing right now. And I personally am giving myself a little bit of a challenge right now, and to really think about this, and, just like I was saying, because I'm guilty and I need to not be. I drink.
Just
and I drive.
Well, we do. We have our beverages a lot at home, like when we're hanging, because we live in the same structure, So it's, but we're not going anywhere. But to your point, I mean, well, I'm not a very tall person. I'm not a very big person. And I'll have a couple glasses of wine. I don't feel buzzed, but I mean, and I have driven no problem home, but it's making me really think about things.
What I'm going to say is that you don't think you are, but you are.
Oh, I just am taking it as a personal challenge. I'm really going to think about this, and even if it's just one or two, and I'm not far from home, take the Uber. Take the Uber, or have somebody drive that hasn't been drinking. Right?
It comes down to, I think with society, a lot of talk about the NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. A lot of people just are on autopilot.
Yep.
So we're on autopilot. I did it too. You go out, but you don't even say anything. You just go to dinner, you have your wine, you get in your car, you go home.
Right.
And like I was just saying to Julie, it's like, you might not think you're buzzed, but you are a little bit. You might be a little bit.
Yep.
So is it, what I say, I know I'll never do it because I just swore to myself, I'll never. I don't want, and plus when you have one, even if it's 15 years prior, you're screwed if you have another. Not that I would have another, but I don't even want them to think I had it. I don't even want them to think I had a drink. But for anyone else, yes. Is there a limit? You're allowed to drink or drive. Technically, you're allowed to be whatever it may be. Whatever the limit is. But how do you know what that is?
Yeah.
How do you know? And I think also for us women, our age group of the moms, everyone thinks, having wine every night. Like, I get to the point, like, why are you having wine every night? Why is that your habit?
That too. That's a whole other episode.
That's a whole other episode. Exactly. So then it comes down to all that. And like you said, if it's not affecting your life badly and you're just staying home and you're having wine every night, who really cares? But then if you take that step back and talk to someone like me, you might be like, why are you having it every night?
Right.
Are you trying to escape? What are you trying to do? I mean, everybody likes, I love drinking wine. I love it. And I like that buzz because you don't get like, loosey-goosey and whatever. Yeah. And I think for me personally, if it wasn't for trying to lose the menopause weight I gained and, all like that, I probably would also still, I've had, when I was menopause frustrated, mind you, I was drinking every night too, because I could, because I'm not dieting and having dessert, but I was really probably drinking away some issues that I want to, it makes you feel good. I mean,
it's just like settling into any habit people settle into.
It's fine, and everything's fine till it's not.
Right.
But you know what I mean? But it definitely is something where I think, like I said, the generation, these younger kids, I think they really got it. I really do. Yeah. It seems like they all take Ubers, and I don't think anyone drives
better than we did, for sure.
Right.
Well,
definitely.
They didn't have that resource. They didn't have cell phones. So this is one of the things that Michelle and I have talked quite a bit about, because the generation that we all three are in is that transitional one between old school and new school. We didn't talk about DUIs. We didn't talk about what you even blowing in anything. It was just kind of like, I mean, I remember rolling around in the back of some car that one of my buddies was taking me home, and I'm listening to AC/DC and going around a corner with no seatbelt,
Yep.
You're hoping you get there.
Well, I think about, like, my ex-husband, I was with him since I was 15, 16, and there's no, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and lie. I mean, we drank all night at clubs and then drove home, and I was I was the one that was known. And I didn't even drink beer. I drank literally Myers Rum and Diet Coke was my go-to drink when I was, in my early 20s. And I could drive. I was never like falling on the floor, mind you. It's not like you're falling. Maybe I think one time I actually was, and I'm not proud of any of this. But I was able to drive better than any of my friends sober. So like I was always the designated driver, even though we were all out drinking. And if you, as an adult, you think back and say like, thank God.
Thank God. I know I'm lucky to be alive.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
We used to drive
Definitely.
to Idaho to the state line from Spokane because the drinking age was 19 and it was 21 in Washington.
And then drive back.
Yeah. We would go out there and party and then drive back to Washington.
We go up to Canada, go up to Vancouver, because the drinking age was 19 up there. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not even like you were like, oh, I really should get a drive. Like you just did it. There was no thought process at all.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then the same thing with us now as adults with, a lot of our age group, you go out for dinner with your husbands or your girlfriends, you're going out for brunch and you're having champagne or mimosas, and you had 7, 8, 9, 10 mimosas over, but no one's thinking.
Yeah.
But you have to think like, you know what? either you're not going to have any, or maybe one, or just get a ride. Because what's like you said, Uber. What's an Uber?
50
I know,
bucks
like, I'd
compared
rather-
to 10,000.
Mimosas are like, I love mimosas.
Yeah,
they're
right?
good.
I like them with a little bit more orange juice though. But I was just in Mexico as an example. We got the bill for the place we were staying at, and you know, all the drinks. There was a few of us there. We had 22 mimosas between us girls. We weren't driving, of course. We were on vacation, but 22 mimosas. I was like, holy shit. They didn't, I don't think they had that much alcohol in them, because I didn't feel like I was,
No, they don't. It doesn't. But
falling
still,
down or anything.
I mean, I've caught buzz off of mimosas because you just have so many.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
It's a lot of
like
sugar, and
You're in the sun.
just like, the fun, drinking. Like I rather day drink, like at Mexico, and drink during the day, and like kind of like lay in the sun, and then take a shower and go out for dinner and be done.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
At least now.
See, we're on the same page.
Yeah. So
Maybe a little dancing,
I love dancing.
Yeah.
That's my thing. But but the thing is, with anything in life, we all have to take that step back and have that like inner dialogue. And it's not just about this, but this is the topic that we're speaking about. And what the irony of it is, I did know to do all that in a sense on the other side before we drove the jet ski back, get the designated driver. And you know what's sad? One of the gentlemen I was with, this guy, Joe, he wound up dying off on his jet ski because he was doing a jet ski bar crawl, and guaranteed his death was due to being drunk.
Sure.
Guaranteed.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt. So it's just literally, I stood there and said, I can't drive my jet ski. And he's like, well, I'm going to call my wife. And she was waiting for us on the other side, which she witnessed everything because she was already waiting for us.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it was meant to be, because I did try to do the right thing, and it kind of backfired. But what's the worst that can happen if you take an Uber?
Right.
But the thing is, I want to put out to the listeners too, no matter what age you are, when you're drinking and you already started, you don't have that mind. You're usually like, I could drive, no problem. You don't have that
plan. You have to have a plan, maybe in advance.
You have to have a plan, because you always think you're not as bad as you are, and you're going to think you can drive. And even when my kids were young, I remember being really into this, and they'd be like, oh, Johnny's driving, he's not drinking. So I'm like, but if you're drinking and not paying attention to Johnny, and he's having a couple of drinks, how do you know?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even trust these young kids who said they were they say, I'm the DD tonight, I'm the DD. Meanwhile, my younger son, for everyone that he was friends with, my older son too, he was always the DD, because he should have been a police officer himself. He's very, very like straight. So he would do it. But like I said, I think the generation now is very, very, they've been taught, which we weren't taught as much.
Yeah.
They've been taught like, this is what you do. So that's good. That's a good thing. But, our society is always down on the teenagers and the drinking, the driving, and you can't drink until you're 21, blah, blah, blah. But the stats show, I don't want to make a quote because I don't know the exact stats. The stats for most people that get DWIs are like in their 40s. It's not these young kids. It's the older people. So it's our age that have to like cut it back a little bit, or like you said, plan ahead.
Well, thank you so much. We are thrilled to have this story with us and hear it from someone who is of the same age, really, that we are. And it's good to hear how you managed it and how you handled it. And really, it's been kind of a blessing in disguise in a lot of ways for you.
Absolutely.
So,
And I just want to put out there and thank our listeners for checking us out on YouTube and subscribing. Keep doing it. Share with your friends. We're out on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. You will find us there. So thank you for downloading. Continue to share. If you like, what you see, follow. And we just thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Elise, for being here today. And not an easy, like you were saying, close to the vest, not an easy story to share. You decided to do it with us, and we are very thankful and honored that you decided to do that. So
it's a great story. I think it'll help a lot of people. So
I hope so.
You.
All right.
Thank you.
Until next time.
I'm glad to meet you.
Yeah.
Glad to meet you guys, period,
Yeah.
Share some of that sunshine with us, okay?
I know, yeah, bring it this way. All right.
All right, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.